Today I want to talk about generational trauma and ancestral clearing and exactly like what that means for me and for my children. And it's different for everyone else. Basically, I was questioned when I was like, when you're sober, exactly like what kind of generational trauma are you talking about? And like, what does that even mean? If you really look at the patterns of like all the women in my family and a lot of and men, it's the same cycles that we've continually gone through, each woman or man, I guess you can say. And I am not allowing my kids to go through that. I saw it when I was younger, and I was like, fuck this shit. I'm not living my life like this. And unfortunately, I did end up going down that road, and my mind did slip, and mental illness is real, and when you're in an environment that doesn't really help you grow in a positive manner, and just still has those generational curses of like abuse, money issues, neglect, addiction, mental illnesses, and not actually like addressing any of it, you're gonna experience it. So so what does generational curses look like for me? For instance, all the women in my family have been in very toxic relationships, very abusive physically and mental relationships. They've all have abandonment issues from their mothers because their moms are lacking this self-love, and I'm at such a forgiving place right now for my mom, and so this has nothing to do with towards her or anything, but these are just the patterns of what has happened from my great grandma to my mom to me, and then we've all been sexually abused. I was sexually abused at the age of 8, and I hid it until a few years ago. My mom was, my grandma, so on. My grandma's jaws were broken. There's so many things, and then we're such caretakers, and we still take care of all these abusers, and we don't take care of ourselves. There's such a lack of self-love that goes into this, and so into our curses, and then we have the poverty mindset of not really knowing about money, and having such a negative thought process on it. And I've been very cautious and aware of not bringing that onto my children, because I hated money growing up. It was such an issue, and when I was younger, I made a decision. I wanted nothing to be like anyone in my family, and unfortunately I did. I landed in addiction, and I landed losing everything, and that woke me up. That was the calling that I was here for. It was fuck this shit. You knew this at the age of 8 that you didn't want to go down this road, and now you're finally waking up, and you really what is it going to take to change so your parents they're actually happy and healed, and you're happy and healed, and then you don't even transfer it over to your children. And so it's a lot of inner healing and inner self-love, and it's kind of my duty that I know that I have to go down. And man, it's fucking hard, but it's not necessarily a bad thing to talk about generational trauma and curses. Shit happens. Each person in my well, what are you gonna do? Try to change the past? Try to change what my grandmas went through? My grandma used to steal live lobsters. Her stories from Brooklyn were insane. And my other grandma taking care of, her second husband. My dad's father died when he was 14 of alcoholism. And then, my step grandpa had a stroke, and he was pretty, it wasn't really healthy, but she stood around and took care of him afterwards for years until they both passed away. And he literally couldn't move and was in a wheelchair. And she ended up dying of dementia. And like the strength that has come from my ancestral like genes is incredible, but then that trauma too. So you gotta have to be like thankful for both sides. Like I'm so grateful for the strength that the women that carry in their blood, and it is a power. It's such a power. But if you can like really use that power to step into who you are and to really learn how to self-love, like that's when like that trauma curse is broken and you don't pass it on. So what are you doing today? Like, are you trying to heal yourself? Do you want this shit to be passed on to your kids? Like, you want to keep going in the same cycles? Or are you going to do something about it? It's all up to you. There's no other person who's going to make that decision besides you.